Hi, everybody. Welcome to, I believe this is the 8th episode of the Veeam 100 show. This is a show where we bring on different people from the Veeam community to highlight some of the cool work that they do within the community. Today, I have Stephen Herzing and Michael Paul joining me. They're going to be talking about PowerShell PowerUp, advanced Veeam scanning techniques using scripts. And would you guys like to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Steve Herzig. I'm solution architect here at Veeam Software for the security part in the famous Product Management Alliances team. I'm a Veeam 100 member since almost 3 years, and probably you know me for my famous PowerShell scripts around the Veeam functionalities. Over to you, Michael.
You're a PowerShell geek from what they were telling me when I was getting ready
for
this.
Oh, really? So. Okay, geek, good.
Hi, so I'm Michael. I'm a principal consultant at Computer Center. I've been part of the Veeam 100 program as Veeam Legend, Veeam Vanguard. Veeam Legend since the first class, actually, and Veeam Vanguard since 2022. Overall, my day-to-day is playing with everything Veeam, doing pre-sales, design, implementation for customers all over the globe.
Cool. And I didn't introduce myself fully. I'm a product strategy technologist on Veeam software team. I'm actually the newest member of our team, and again, very excited to be here today. So to start, let's just talk about kind of why and how backup matters, do a quick overview of the basics, and then we'll dive into things in more detail. So you want to kick us off, Michael?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about, Veeam scanning techniques using scripts. We're going to be getting into the weeds of, exactly all the awesome functionality you can do with PowerShell. But before then, let's do the quick leveler. Let's make sure everyone knows exactly what we're talking about here. So what is the background that we need to know to be aware of? So within Veeam's kind of best practices and anyone that works in data protection, we always talk about this 3-2-1 rule, and that's how it started. And Veeam have kind of evolved this over time, but at its core, it was, we should have 3 copies of data, our production, and then 2 backups. We should have 2 different media types for our backups to be across. We should have 1 copy offsite. Now, that was great back in the day, and then things have evolved. Now we've got 3, 2, 1, 1, 0, and that extra 1 is we should have an immutable or air-gapped copy. So we could be talking object storage, we could be talking the Veeam hardened repository, we could be talking tape, we could be talking a service provider. But the thing we want to focus on is the one that doesn't quite get the attention it deserves, and that's the 0. And that 0 is 0 backup verification errors. Now, historically, I've been guilty of this as well. I would treat that as, guess what? Your backup, we tested that we could recover it, and that was fine. It worked. Great. Job done. Well, technically, yeah, that's true. If we're only testing that the backup spun up and we didn't have an error with that, then yeah, we hit our 0, but there is so much more that we can do. But rather than still the show and still the focus here in the intro, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hand over to Steve to talk about some of the things we're going to be going through today.
Yeah, first of all, keep in mind, it's not just about verification of backups. It's also, let's say, scan through backups to see if something malicious is in there or something that shouldn't belong in your backup. But still protect your production environment, because it's too late when we find something, but maybe we find something you're not aware of. And in the next coming minutes, we will show you possibilities not only out from the UI, right? UI is boring. We will show you scripts, not only for make it easier, but also for automation. Automation is also sometimes a topic when we are in discussions with the customers, with the partners. Therefore, we have a nice slide deck for that. Michael, if you can click the Google search bar. So if we are looking for scanning Veeam backups, there are many options available. Many options are or were already there in the product since many years ago. But as you can see, new features were coming in. Currently, we're on version 12.1. We will also cover that a little bit, the news around that. And yes, we will touch every topic you have seen on the screen here. And for some of the topics, we will present the script, but there are more scripts available in my GitHub repository. So we will share also afterwards a QR code, which you can scan and then go through it. So first topic here will be data labs. The animation comes in.
Always.
It's all live and in color.
Well, we're waiting. Just to remind everybody, this is interactive. So if you have questions, comments, please feel free to drop those in one of the chats and we will take care of answering them for you.
Okay, so to start with, Veeam Data Labs. So what is the Veeam Data Lab? Well, it's multiple things really. The Data Lab is the core functionality that enables everything we're talking about on screen here. So first of all, the on-demand sandbox. We talked about during that background, the ability to recover a backup. Well, we can recover backups to isolated environments, meaning that we could have, for example, an Exchange environment that's completely isolated from the production that we want to do some interrogation into, whether that's for patching, any kind of testing, upgrades that we might want to do. We can schedule this stuff on demand. We can do Sure Backup and Sure Replica, and there's some interesting additions to Sure Backup that we'll talk about down the line. But in essence, Sure Backup and Sure Replica, it's the equivalent of creating a backup job, but for recovery verification. And as the name suggests, Sure Backup, that's going to be a scheduled testing of your backup. Sure Replica, it's going to be a scheduled testing of your replication jobs. And then we moved on to the stage restore and secure restore. And Steve, if you want to talk us through a little bit of that.
Yes, stage restore means before we will bring back your let's say virtual machine into the production, we will run a script, and if it's successful, we will finish the restore. Also here, we would have had an example, but it takes some time to spin this up. What would it have been? That is, let's say, a Linux live CD that we will present to your restore, and then we would scan through it, do something, and then bring it back if everything looks good. Secure restore, let's say an old body in our product. Here, there are some news around it. I will cover that in the next few minutes. Secure restore means you can scan your backups while doing a restore. Before version 12.1, it was, let's say, just antivirus scan. Now you can also leverage a Yara rule to, let's say, scan the backup before bringing it back to the production. Secure restore. Next.
So what I understand, Secure Restore has been around for a while, and we have a lot of stories about it. So, talk about what's new and what updates are within Secure Restore.
Correct. So as already mentioned, it was in since version 9.5 update 4, if I remember correctly. And the point there was we presented the backup to the mount server where we had the antivirus solution that was installed to scan through the files. And if something was found, you could have decided what should happen next. Should we abort or should we just restore without network connectivity? And now with version 12.1, you have the ability to do also Yara scan. But do you have to wait until a restore should happen for scanning your backup? No, or your backups. So here we have now in the UI the scan option, but it's on demand. That means now you have the ability from your management console to scan several restore points. And as you can see here on the screen, you can say, okay, just antivirus scan or Yara scan using one rule. This is nice, as said, for an on-demand scan, but how about if you want to use multiple Yara rules? Or how about if you want to automate that process? There are options available, but I have a script for that, let's say, can automate, can trigger this on-demand scan from command line. It's a community script. It's always on the right bottom corner where you see the QR code to download or to see the README file in the GitHub repository. What does it do? the point here is, as you have seen maybe before on the screen, we could only have selected one Yara rule. With the script here in the community, you can select multiple Yara rules to go through. Also an important thing here is it's for Windows hosts only currently. And how does it look like in real life? That's my screen I need to share. So it's a PowerShell script, which you can use and let's say define where should we search for the restore points. Here we have the backup job name. It's a Windows job, trust me. And this is the VM I want to scan. My script also allows you to do an antivirus scan. So the parameter here at the end would be AV scan. Here it's a Yara scan. So if I hit enter, it asks you what Yara rule you want to use. And here you get a list of all the Yara rules that are present on the backup server. I currently just use Yara rule number 1, but you could select 1, 2, and 3, and so on. So press enter, and now it's triggering several jobs on the Veeam Backup server. You see here it's a scan backup job and a file level recovery in the background that mounts the backup to the mount host and scans through it. This functionality not just checks one, let's say, restore point, it checks every restore point until it finds a clean one. Currently in my setup, I just have, let's say, bad ones. That means here failed might be a little bit a let's say, misinterpretation from my side here. Failed, it's not failed, it's, hey, something has been found with this Yara rule as a match. The same will happen here for the second scan, but to make it faster here, you see we have a scan log that points to the file that matches this Yara rule. You see it's the recipe number 2. So first of all, what does my Yara rule do here? Here we have the, where it is, secret recipes. So quickly, Yara introduction. I was looking for the text pineapple, doesn't matter if it's up or lowercase, but not for pineapple with rice. And this recipe number 2, what was in there or what is in there, you can see it's a recipe for a famous pizza, and for the Italians, it's forbidden to have pineapple in it. So I have another recipe that also has pineapple in it, but I excluded that. Here you can see recipe number 4 also has pineapple, but with rice. That's okay, because it's not pizza, it's a dessert with vanilla ice cream. And as you have seen, multiple Yara rules that can come in handy. We'll come to that later with our inline scanner, for example, at the end of the show. But over to you, Michael, to go to the next topic.
All right.
Okay.
We did have a question from the audience, which we love to see.
Yes, sure.
Suro is asking on Facebook, what antivirus softwares do we support with the scan?
So out of the box, there's quite a few actually that are supported for secure restore. Because Veeam Backup replication is running on Windows, well, everyone's by default got access to Windows Defender. So out of the box, you don't need to bring a specific AV solution to this to benefit from this. But ultimately, a lot of people got their own AV solutions. So some that come to mind, you've got Symantec, ESET, Kaspersky, Bitdefender, there's Sentinel-1 and Trellix. I know that were kind of being talked about. I think that's only within a more recent release, but it doesn't end there. So, for example, for a long time, there's been a community script to leverage Sophos antivirus. As long as you can interact with a command line interface, you can actually integrate any of your own antivirus solutions, really. If they've got that functionality, Veeam's happy to work alongside it. If you check out the Veeam Help Center documentation, there's a whole plethora of information there as to what is supported out of the box and how you need to get it to work if it's not.
Thank you.
Right. So moving on to the next slide here then. So Sure Backup. This is, for anyone that knows me, this is my favorite topic. It always is, because Sure Backup for me is really where Veeam adds a lot of value. You know, we move beyond this concept of, okay, we take backups and it's only on a bad day that people then actually appreciate that software in its earnestness. So being able to instead put your backups to work, that is where the key difference is. And, you know, Sure Backup has changed over time. So I mentioned early on that, you know, historically, this is very much about let's just schedule it on demand. But Steve, I believe that there's some new functionality you want to talk to us about that came out within 12.1 by any chance?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Sure Backup Lite. Maybe you have seen it before while I was doing this scanning with my script. In the background, it also said Sure Backup. What does it do? Well, you don't need this appliance and you don't need this, let's say, virtual environment to spin up your virtual machine. We don't bring up any virtual machine. We just mount the backups to the mount host and scan through it. And for an automation out of the management console, that can be quite handy. Why? You just need to create this Sure Backup Lite. We will show it right afterwards, which then can scan through your backups through a regular base. Yeah, thanks, Michael. Here you see it. If you bring up the Sure Backup wizard, there is just a new menu entry here at the bottom that says, okay, content scan only. And during the wizard setup, you can also select what do you want to do during this scan, antivirus and Yara, just one Yara rule currently, or both, whatever you want to do. But as you maybe already know from the Sure Backup from the past, you can also do a backup file verification here, and that's it. So quite, let's say, a simple setup. So no additional, let's say, networking stuff that you need to think about, right, Michael? That's something sometimes challenging when you're bringing up this Sure Backup environment.
Definitely. And, you know, just to kind of bring it back up and, you know, share a story from the field, so to speak. So, yeah, Sure Backup, again, I can't rate it highly enough. It is my favorite Veeam feature, but ultimately it's always been treated as a day two operation. And what tends to happen is you know, if someone's migrating to Veeam, for example, from a legacy backup solution, then they start recreating their jobs and they get everything up and running. And I mean, Veeam scales to thousands upon thousands of VMs. And then they'll get that implemented and they go, oh, okay, now I can do something with Sure Backup. What do I do? And then they kind of realize that actually their jobs might not be well suited for Sure Backup, because by default, what Sure Backup would do prior to 12.1, so if we focus on this full recoverability testing section here for a moment, it would create a virtual lab, and that would have a virtual interface in the production network as a proxy appliance. Typically hasn't got to, but 99% of the time it's probably going to be there. And Veeam will create on either say vSphere or Hyper-V a isolated virtual switch. So we've got a virtual switch with no physical connectivity to the network, and it will talk to those virtual machines. So straight away, we've got all these dependencies that we've got to build up. We've got to make sure that, if these are a bunch of domain virtual machines, we need to authenticate. Well, actually, we need to bring up a domain controller and keep that running for a while. And then we need to make sure every virtual machine, if I've got 20 SQL database servers, for example, and I want to make sure those databases are all clean, healthy, ready to recover, I've got to boot every one of those virtual machines. And then I've got to go through and make sure all of the database instances start okay. Then I run my script, and that can cause issues with scale. I've seen people work around this by creating scripts that will create a random job and attach specific virtual machines only, and then tear it back down afterwards. Doesn't scale too well. And one of the things for anyone that's kind of got their jobs like that, you don't need to compromise on the security vector here, because rather than doing that full testing, you can still perform this backup verification and content scan only. It's going to cut out a lot of the stuff I just mentioned there. So it might be you want to do security scans on the daily, but you might want to do weekly backup scans. A little extra kind of side note here, what you can do from Veeam Backup and Replication V12 is you can migrate virtual machines between backup jobs. So these people that have historically gone, oh, I've deployed to thousands of VMs, I've got these massive backup chains, I can't start moving stuff around now. I'm sorry, I can't use Sure Backup. Now you can. You can utilize the VM functionality to migrate your virtual machines between different backup jobs so they're better aligned for Sure Backup. And that's all I've got to say on Sure Backup for the moment there, because I'll probably start talking about it for the rest of the session. So instead, Steve, let's talk about the data integration API. Yeah. Let's get this back on track.
Let's talk about my best friend here, right? The data integration API, also, let's say, an old body in our product. Here, as you can see on the screen, here we can mount almost every backup that's, let's say, present in your repository to a target system. Here you also have a QR code. Please have a look in our help center to see what's supported. And because zero limitation, I don't like zero. That it's not. There is never 100% in IT, right? Even there is no zero. So that's why we put in the QR code. And also here we do have a script, because this guy helps us to inspect the data in multiple ways. It's not just about security. You can also do data mining, for example, check for anomalies or credit card information, so on and so forth. And the good thing is this, as you can see, there are almost no limitation. We can also mount the backup to a Linux host, and that brings in the possibility to do scanning from systems that are running on Linux. Next slide, please.
One thing I'll just say before we kind of jump on from that,
Sure.
One of the key things you've called out there is the multiple ways to inspect data. And one of the things that as an industry we're starting to see is there's a shift from ransomware to data theft. And one of the best ways to protect ourselves against data theft is to know exactly what data we've got, where we've got it, and do that interrogation that way. So everyone thinks of these YARA rules as purely ways to, determine, okay, there's a particular threat in my environment. Sometimes the threat is just that there is data at risk of being stolen, overly permissive shares, sensitive personal information that we need to be aware of for regulatory compliance. So we can also leverage this data integration API in that way as well through this exact same mechanism. And, well, good news for the UI guys. It's also now available in the Veeam Management Console from 12.1. It's called Publish Disks, as you can see on the screen. And here you would select which restore point, which disk, and which target host where you want to present that backup. Is it easier to use than PowerShell? You can decide after my live demo of the PowerShell script. That's available as well on the GitHub repository. But yeah, this is also, let's say, for on demand, quite handy. Just click through the wizard and you're ready to scan. So, as already mentioned, yes, it's not just antivirus scanning or YARA scanning. You can use this script and do whatever you want with PowerShell. And currently what I tested is scan through agent backups of Windows or Linux machines, Veeam backups as well. That's possible. And for that, I also do have a live demo. Yeah. So as you can see here, again, PowerShell with some options. First of all, you tell the script which VM you want to scan. Here it's a Linux VM in a specific backup job. Then you define the mount host where I want to present the backup. And in this case, it's a Linux system with an antivirus solution on it and as well YARA installed. But in this demonstration, I will do an AV scan. I connect with this user to this Linux system using this private key. So also here, security, not just have the password in the script. And when I hit enter, before I hit enter, to show you on the disk here, we have this Linux host. It's currently clean. So there is not this tiny bug here, this red bug that marks suspicious or infected backup. Here we have a clean one. And I also updated the script some weeks ago to also show it in the output of what's available as restore point. As you can see here in the menu, it says clean. I only have one restore point, but if there are multiple one, you can select a specific one.
hit enter, and now we present this backup to this Linux host. And here you see it's a disk publish restore type. There are some parameters. The reason is also here started by PowerShell. You could also bring in your own reason, just adjust the script. That's simple to do. And if the script should be quick, if something gets found, and yes, I do have a virus on this Linux host, the famous iCar test virus, and you will see it here on the screen, as well as the script will also mark then the restore point as infected. So that's the idea. And the same, of course, it's not just for Linux. Here we do have clean backups as well for Windows system, but I don't trust this guy here. So just let me quickly cheat here a little bit. Same approach, just another host name, just another backup job name. Then the same menu, you see number 1 is clean. And now comes the demo effect. The keyboard is not working. That is somehow a bug, but nevertheless, I will quickly. So again, you see it's live and in color. That's why error can happen. So number 1, clean. Let's scan it. The same happens again in the background. Disk published to the Linux host. I will trigger the installed antivirus solution there. And if something gets found, also here, you see iCar, and hopefully my script was also, it's still running, but let's see if it's, you see now this restore point is also marked as infected. So quite handy. And as said, you can use this guy as well for Yara scanning. You put just only the Yara rule that you want to trigger on this Linux host, and then you're ready to go. Good. Back to you, Michael.
Amazing. Now, before we move on, let's just make sure that everyone knows exactly what types of backups we can work with here, because Veeam's been making all kinds of plays into object storage as well as the kind of traditional block repository. So what can we support? First of all, we can support disk, object storage, and there's one favorite here, isn't there, Steve?
The surprise.
Tape.
Yeah.
Tape doesn't get left behind, but as you say, restore to a repository first.
It can be that you have some dormant malware, right, in an old backup, you're not sure, and before you want to restore this guy, just do a scanning. But yes, of course, we need to bring it back first on a repository, and then you're good to go. So we also thought about this functionality or this possibility here.
Yeah, and people always think that, you know, oh, how long can malware really be dormant? I had first-hand instant response. You know, I was the first boots on the ground, so to speak, and they had to go back 3 months to find something clean. It does happen. It does sit there. So, yeah, test everything. Remember, we want this zero. We want 0 recovery verification errors. We want to know the moment we've got a problem. And with that, onto inline malware detection.
Yeah, that's, let's say, a new guy, right, in our product since version 12.1. What does it do? Well, there are 2 options, let's say, available in the advanced and vulnerability detection. First of all, it's the inline detection. Per default, it's not enabled. That's important to know. And this inline detection scans during the backup. If something got encrypted, if many files got deleted, if an incremental backup is bigger than usual. And we also see currently 2 types of onion links, or 2 types of ransom nodes, Clop and Medusa, for example. And then that's why I mentioned this before. Yara rules can then be handy because you can specifically scan through your backups for those, let's say, malware nodes, and to see where is it, and maybe since when it's there, because maybe we detected it in the first backup when you enabled it, but maybe it was already there for many weeks and you didn't know. The second one on the bottom is guest index scanning. This guy is enabled by default. This is important to know. Why? Well, it brings also some, let's say, additional CPU cycles into the game. Means if you're using guest indexing in your backup jobs, and typically, maybe Michael, you can confirm that as well, but typically for your file servers, you enable guest indexing just to quickly find the files that are stored there. And what are we doing here with this guy when it's enabled? We just, let's say, compare the content of the index, of the file names, of the file name endings against the list that we do provide. And this list then can tell you, or we check it, and then we will tell you, oh yes, we detected something. And also here can be discussion because maybe the list is big. You don't want to click through it in the UI. That's why I also have a script for that. But also for the visibility here, you just see, okay, I can enable it, but what endings get exactly scanned? So it's in an XML file. If you like to read an XML file, fine. But yeah, I would say if you want to, let's say, automate that or quickly have a look up what's in there, script can also come in handy.
Definitely.
And we have another audience question.
Sure.
Again, Asuru is asking if there's any possibility to scan and clean while the backup is taking place.
Yeah. Yeah, go on, Michael.
And so this is one of the things that the inline entropy analysis is actually doing, isn't it, Steve? It's this is a story that's kind of been taking place for Veeam for a while, trying to, get the best of both worlds between post-processing and the actual live. We don't want to steal some of the extra things that are going to be talked about a little bit later on, but effectively, this journey started a long time ago for Veeam. Veeam 1, this kind of standalone monitoring island, observing everything that's been going on in your environment. That has already been working out for a while. Okay, look, we've got suspicious, backup size increases here, and that's typically a sign that something bad's kind of going on. And then really Veeam have taken it to the next level now with 12.1 from everything you've just described. So
important thing maybe here, I see scan and clean. It's just scan. We don't clean. We don't touch your data. We don't alter your data. We let's say we take it as it is on your system and we store it in the repository. There is no cleaning. We shouldn't do that, right? But we make you aware there is something suspicious in your backup. Please have a look. Please have a look afterwards with all the tools that are available. Yeah.
Absolutely. The only way that we are 100% confident that the data is clean is by having a clean verified backup. So rather than getting Veeam to attempt to do data repairs on the fly, no, that's what your backups are for.
Correct. Or you remember maybe the staged restore, which we were talking about at the beginning. There can be a possibility that before you bring back this machine into your production environment, that you do a cleaning process. Of course, I do also have a script because in Sure Backup, Michael can confirm you can have internet connection. So first you can download the latest antivirus signature. Then you can clean. And if you're 100% sure, stage restore, you bring back this machine, let's say clean.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we were talking about scripts in XML.
Yeah.
Now, not everyone likes to read XML before they go to bed at night, do they? I know we're probably a bit more guilty of that, Steve, but come on, show us the goodies.
Also here, you see there are a lot of options currently in this script, so you can look up for all the entries that are in there. You can search for an entry for a specific one. You can export the entries in a CSV file if you want to, let's say, do some whatever Excel sheets. I'm also a fan of Excel sheets, by the way, so I'm an Excel geek, I would say. You can also add entries. So there we have, let's show it on the live demo because then it's easier to explain. So we are talking about malware protection. So here, if you have, let's say, a test environment with maybe suspicious file endings, but you don't want to get alerted about that, you can trust those files. That's a possibility. But if new guys are coming into the game, you can add extensions as well. This file gets updated every day. If you have an internet connection to Veeam, fine, we will download it for you. Otherwise, you can just import it. But how does it look like when we detect something? So I prepared something before this session. So here you can see I do have, or first of all, I show this malware detection. I do have a backup here that was telling me, hey, guest indexing, check, tells me there are 2 suspicious file ending in this backup. And then we mark the backup as suspicious. You have this alert here, as well as in the malware events. You see the details as well here in this log file. And from here, you can also say, okay, I trust those guys here, just trust them or include them somehow. But yeah, clicking through the UI is not fun, right? That's why we do have this script. And in this example, I will copy it quickly. Here, what I do is I want to, let's say, mark everything that has the ending Veeam 100 as suspicious. Sorry, Madalena and the others from the team, but that's the demo effect, right? But yeah, it did something. What's going on? Remote connection terminated. Okay, here you see. Okay, currently the XML file has 4,200 entries, and we have added 2 suspicious. So let's see, how does it look like now? It's all live. I like that. It was not working, you see. It's somehow this environment. Hopefully I didn't bring in some ransomware, right? Yeah.
Tested it too hard.
Yeah, I tested it too often. But trust me, it works. Let's go again to the scanning tools. I think, yeah, we do have some time as well, but
I mean, otherwise, like, all good data protection practitioners here, we've also got a video of it we could scrub ahead to, but it's better to see, isn't it?
yeah, correct. So no error. Here it is.
And there we are. The Veeam 100 is suspicious.
Yeah, but you can remove it, and you could also remove it using the script, of course.
Yeah, we're going to need to make them trusted.
Yeah, let's remove it for the next show, right? Otherwise, this will be the last one. Hopefully not.
Hopefully.
Sorry, guys.
Cool. At this point, let's take a pause and see if anybody has any questions before we kind of wrap things up.
Cool. While we're waiting for those questions to come in, yeah, it's one of those things that I think is really interesting. So one of the questions I would kind of premeditate, because it's happened quite a few times talking to my customers, is, well, why do we care about these specific file extensions? There's the initial thing of, well, okay, we can have a look if there's a particularly known ransomware strain. But again, people trying to be smart, they're trying to mask some of this stuff. So there's also things like .onion links now that we're having a look for, or we can have a look for, aren't there, Steve? And do you maybe want to talk to us a little bit about why Veeam cares about .onions?
Well, typically it's the URL where you get the information about how you need to pay the ransom.
Yep.
That's
exactly. And that's really the point we just want to touch on here, is that anything such as .onion, any kind of implication that there might be dark web connectivity, well, it's all about that anonymizing the hacker's accountability, and therefore, just trying to make sure that their tracks are covered. So anything that Veeam can do out of band to identify this is always worth it. I remember one of the Veeam global technologists, Edwin, said something to me that really kind of stuck in my mind, saying about, if we look at all these, incident response systems, all the name a vendor, these XDR tools, they have milliseconds to determine whether something is clean or suspicious, and that's not really a good time sample to work with because it's all happening in flight. If we gave all these tools the time needed to do the scanning, we'd have much better success rates, but everyone would complain about performance. So this is one of the reasons why using your backups is such an important tool in the fight against ransomware and these external threats, because we can sit out of band, we can sit in isolation, we can sit in these silos that the external or internal threat doesn't even know that we're onto them, and we can take those remedial actions before they have a chance to deploy the final encryption strike here for us. So moving on to the summary then. Obviously, if there's any questions, keep them coming in. So obviously Steve is the mastermind behind these scripts. He's made sure to share them all on GitHub, so be sure to download them, use them in your environment. It'd be quite topical to say with everything we've seen about these, XY vulnerabilities recently, or XZ, whichever compression tool it was. Steve's quite au fait with this stuff. Let's not try and push anything malicious into the scripts there. But again, it's community driven, it's community sourced. And yeah, it's great that Steve's sharing it to the world. So all the QR codes there, if you want to, grab a screenshot of that, if you want to take a picture. Ultimately, this session, I believe, is going to be recorded and uploaded, so you'll be able to get those if you miss them, or if you're not watching live, don't worry. But yeah, again, well done, Steve, on these scripts. I think they're absolutely fantastic and should be part of any data protection administrator's toolkit.
Yeah, we should make part 2 of this episode as well, I think.
Sounds good to me.
That's a good idea. All right. Well, that was Michael Paul and Stephen Herzig talking about PowerShell and backups. We do, of course, have a ton of other opportunities to learn and ways to engage in the Veeam community coming up. On April 9th, we'll be doing something on industry insights, migrate and modernize. And then our next episode of Tech Bites will be on meeting demands with effective security solutions. And of course, we're all getting very excited for Veeam On, which will happen June 3rd through 5th. Really excited to attend that and learn what's new coming out with Veeam. Aside from that, a lot of connection opportunities with the community and a lot of resources to learn more about this stuff in addition to those QR codes. Definitely check out the Veeam community site. There are several Veeam user groups that might be active in your area. Look at that as well. And of course, connect with us on social media, and on YouTube, there's a video archive of past Veeam 100 shows, as well as solutions for a lot of the other things we work with. With that, thank you all for joining me, and enjoy the rest of your day.